Bonjour et bienvenue à la discriminating gamer. Quand j'étais petit, quand j'avais 12 ou 13 ans, j'ai voulu être un maron ou un avocat ou acteur. Mais aujourd'hui, prof de l'histoire. Aujourd'hui, on regarde Napoleon 1806 de Shakos. Napoleon 1806 de Shakos est un jeu de guerre, c'est déroulant dans la campagne contre les Prusse.
In the interest of sanity, the rest of this review will be in English.
The players take on the role of the Prussians or the French during this 1806 campaign. Now, in the standard game, players go ahead and they set up their blocks according to the setup chart in the map. You've, of course, got the Prussians and the French, who are, of course, in their specific zones. The Prussia further north, kind of protecting their cities to the north. You have the French in the south, who, of course, are attempting to advance. Now, the French and the Prussians both have leaders. In the case of French, it is Napoleon. In the case of the Prussians, it is Frederick III. Now, you each have kind of a core player board, and this player board, of course, has spots for various cubes representing your strength for that particular core. You also have a fatigue space below it that you'll fill up later as your core engages in its operations. Now you have a score tracker, which is 1 through 20. You place the marker in the center on the 10 spot, and it's kind of a tug-of-war. As the French gain points, the marker moves toward the 1. If the Prussians move points, the marker moves toward the 20, and of course, if ever it gets to the 1 or the 20, that side wins instantly. Now, the game map has a number of spaces. It has kind of clear spaces, which is most of the spaces on the board. It also has forest spaces, which is going to give an advantage to the defender. And then, of course, you have various kind of towns, fortresses, that will, of course, give, again, a defense to the defender. The Prussians begin with the Prussian cities of Erfurt, Leipzig, and Halle to the north, which are kind of boons in terms of victory points. And the French have their own victory point city of Bamberg in the south. Now, there's several phases in every turn. Players are going to go ahead and start their turn with the draw phase. Essentially, they each have their own deck, the French and the Prussian decks. You're going to draw 3 cards from the draw deck. Now, during the draw phase, if you draw a card with a red banner, you have to play it immediately. It may help you, it may harm you, sometimes it deals with the weather, but you have to play that immediately. Next, you have the initiative phase. Now, during the initiative phase, you can play one of your blue background cards. Again, this card can help you, it can screw over your enemy, and you can choose to play that initiative card at that time. Next, you're both going to draw a card from the top of your deck, and whichever card has the highest point value means that player will go first in the operations phase. Now, in the operations phase, you can go ahead and you can play green cards. You can play green cards that are going to help you to do certain things in moving and conducting your operations. You can play cards there right there immediately, or you can hang on to them. But then what you do is you look at all of your face-up units, and these can be in stacks. You can have stacks of units or individual core out there. But any ones that are face-up, meaning they have not yet been activated, you can go ahead and move them and fight with them. Now, essentially, if you choose to move with a stack, again, you draw a card. Now, the card's point value tells you what your movement points are, how far you can go. But you subtract 1 movement point for every core above the first one. So if you got 1 core and you draw 4, you could potentially move it 4 spaces. But if you draw a 4 and you've got 3 there, you're going to subtract 2 points from that as you move that stack forward. You can, of course, move units off of a stack at any time or move them into stacks at any time. Now, if Napoleon is accompanying a core, he gives you a movement bonus, and then some other core also give you movement bonuses as well. Now, as you're moving, as I say, you can move one space for every movement point you have. However, if you come to a bridge that has been destroyed, it takes 3 movement points to cross that bridge. Now, you also get fatigue per movement. Every movement point above the 3rd, you're going to get 1 fatigue cube you put in that course fatigue spot. If you move out of a contested area, that's going to cost you a fatigue, and if you move into a contested area, that too will cost you a fatigue. Now, if a card plays and it gives fatigue, you also add that fatigue to it. But a commander, if they have kind of a fatigue symbol with a cross through it, they don't have to take that. Essentially, it's a discount for fatigue. When you get fatigue, if you have more than 1 core, you have to equally distribute the fatigue among the core. Now, when a stack moves into a space that is contested, you have to essentially find your avenue of escape, your axis of escape, your axis of retreat. You put a marker showing where that will retreat to if there is a battle and how you're going to get out of it. Now, you can move. If you're already in a contested space, you can attack. But if you move into a space and you want to attack, that's going to cost you a little bit in terms of cards, but essentially you can do that as well. Now, as soon as you declare an attack, you can go ahead and you can play any cards that have the cross sabers, any green cards that have the cross sabers, and your opponent can do likewise. This can inflict damage on your enemy or give you other advantages before the combat begins. Depending on the number of strength core, if you're like under halfway, you get 1 card. If you're above halfway, you get 2 cards for that battle. However, if you were doing a moving attack, you get 1 less card. That's the disadvantage of the moving attack. You also subtract 1 card per core that has more than 4 fatigue points. If you end up with no cards with which to attack, then your attack is cancelled. Now, if the defender is defending a forest area or a citadel that they control, then they get an extra card for that attack. Now, some of the core commanders, they're going to give you some bonuses, maybe some more cards, maybe inflicting some fatigue. There's things that you can automatically get depending on who you are attacking with or defending with. Again, if you've played any cards or any events, you go ahead, you add those things as well. You each are going to then reveal all the cards you played simultaneously, and you're going to look in the bottom left part of that card. That section of the card will say how many of the enemy's units are destroyed and how many fatigue they are going to get. 1 crossed out block means 1 enemy unit destroyed, and 1 fatigue symbol means they gain 1 fatigue cube. Whoever inflicted the most damage to their enemy wins. Now, the loser must, of course, retreat. However, if it's a tie, both stacks just stay in that same location. As I say, the player that is defeated must retreat. If you were the attacker and you went in, you place that axis of retreat, you have to retreat that way. The defender has more options for retreat, but of course they're going to gain fatigue, and they're going to gain more fatigue if they cross bridges. Now, if the winning player has more cavalry units than the defending player, they can go ahead and pursue. They draw a card. If they have other symbols of the cavalry symbol, they can draw more cards, and they are inflicting fatigue on the retreating player. You're not destroying units, but you are inflicting fatigue. Now, if ever a core gets 9 fatigue points, then that core is destroyed. Now, at the end of the battle, you go ahead, you add up each side's strength losses. For every cube you lost in battle, your enemy gains 1 point. So essentially, you find the difference, and the winner gets that many points. Again, if players succeed in taking those key areas, those key cities, those fortress cities, then they gain the point values that those cities are worth. So players are going back and forth, they're drawing cards, they're playing the immediate event cards, they're playing their blue initiative cards and their green operations cards. They are moving their units, they are attacking and moving with their units. They are attempting to inflict both fatigue and damage on the enemy, and they are attempting to take those victory point cities. Now the game lasts 7 rounds. If you're the French, you're trying to get those point values to the bottom of the track. If you're the Prussians, you're trying to get them to the top of the track. If you do that, you win instantly. Otherwise, at the end of the 7th game round, if there are any points still on the board, then the Prussians will win. Otherwise, the French win. Napoleon, 1806. Hello, everybody. We'll be back to the review in just a second. I just want to take a minute to tell you to go visit Galaxy of Games in West Jordan, Utah. It is Utah's newest game store. It's run by friends of mine. It's a great place, great selection, great prices, well-lit, clean bathrooms. If you go in there, ladies and gentlemen, and you tell them that I sent you, the discriminating gamer, and you use the promo code TDG, you'll get 10% off of your purchase. Check out Galaxy of Games. So there's more going on here. That is just the basic rules overview, but that is the basic idea of how this game is played with the cards and with the core and the movement and like I said, just the basics. Now there's some other scenarios in this. You can actually play with setting up the player screens, doing a fog of war scenario where you don't know where you're setting at and you keep your cubes facing, or your core facing you. So that's an option. I haven't played with that. I've just played the kind of the basic game there. And then, of course, the game also comes with dice. So if you don't want to do the cards, you can actually, during battles, roll dice, which show whether you're inflicting fatigue or damage on your enemy. That's something you can do, too. I've got the dice, and I was thinking about using them, but actually I kind of preferred playing with the cards. I thought the card draw was just a little more fun, a little more exciting. I've got plenty of games that do dice and do it well. And while I do like dice, and I may try it with this game at some point, I really like the way the cards work here. Now, this game kind of reminds me of some other games, the way the cards work. Like, you played Napoleon 1815 from Worthington. They've got that same thing where, depending on where you are and how you're fighting, you get a number of cards, and of course you're tracking your core there as well. But this game has a lot more meat than something like Napoleon 1815 or Waterloo 1815. This game is a little more, operations feel a little more involved, your strategies are a little bit more, you got more choices here. And the way the cards work, as I say, you can get cards for defensive stuff and how strong you are. Your cards work that way, but they play very differently than that Waterloo game. Here, of course, as I say, you're looking at the bottom of those cards. Now, I did point out, too, there's the bottom right card, which has other stuff you can play at different times, and you can reinforce your guys. You can get rid of some of that fatigue. There are options there for all sorts of other things. So that's pretty fun as well. I really enjoyed the way the cards work, because there's so many different things cards are doing. And typically, I really enjoy games, and particularly war games, where they have cards that wear a lot of different hats, where they do a lot of different things. I'm thinking of, like, say, Combat Commander Europe, right, where you play cards for different things. And you get a little bit of that here. And I really, really enjoy that. I like how you're playing all your cards, and you're looking, and you're kind of measuring it here. Now, I should point out, too, this is a game where Napoleon is very, very strong. The Prussians are not as strong. So the Prussians really kind of have to pick their battles. And critically, too, the Prussians are wise to blow the bridges, to slow the Napoleon, because Napoleon's just kind of a steamroller coming through there. The French, kind of a steamroller coming through there. And so the Prussians really have to be judicious in how they're going to fight, because they can get knocked out pretty easily if they're not careful. It's very, very important that Napoleon, or rather the Prussians, keep the French at bay and tease them and maneuver around them. So really the impetus of defending, the impetus, I was going to say, of really making this game a good strategic game kind of falls on the Prussians, because they're the ones that have to be creative in how they're meeting the French threat. I've seen this game before, and I thought, oh, that looked fun, and I reached out recently to the good people at Shakos. They sent me this, and I got to tell you, I'm so glad they did. I'll tell you right now, I love this game. This, there's so many Napoleonic games I play and I love. Commands and Colors Napoleonics has always been one of my favorite. But this is really shooting to the top of that list. And I got to play it some more, but I could potentially see it becoming my favorite Napoleon-themed game I've ever played, my favorite Napoleon war game I've ever played. It's really, really, really good. It's just a solid game. And one thing I like about it, too, is it's not too long. This game plays, an hour and a half or so. It doesn't take 5-6 hours or anything approaching that. It's a good solid game that really gives you a feel of operations and trying to maneuver and battle without it being just so weighted by game length and minutia. It does just a perfect balance here, in my opinion, of gameplay and theme and fun, and just knocks it out of the park. I think there's other games in this series. I'd love to try them too, because I think this is a great game. Really, really enjoy it. I can't say enough good about it. I haven't played the variants in here, though. I got to do that at some time. I want to try the Fog of War one. I want to try some of the other cool things that are going on. But I really, really like this game. So the recommendation for the discriminating gamer for Napoleon 1806 is buy it. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. We ask you to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. Ladies and gentlemen, I would really love for you to check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about military history and books on history. Right now, I'm putting up my lectures for my course on Nazi Germany. Please check that out, and please subscribe to that channel. And please give a thumb to this video on Board Game Geek. That helps us out a lot as well. Say, did you know that Napoleon had a marshal named Etienne MacDonald? And Etienne MacDonald, he retired, I think, like around the 1830s or something, to his country estate just south of Paris. Apparently, old MacDonald had a farm.
Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where